and welcome back here to the second installment of Driveway Talk. Once again, I'm Ben Johnson alongside Daniel Sippy. And Daniel, we've had a pretty good time last week as far as the first episode goes.
Yeah, I would say, Ben, I'd like to give some love out there to everyone that gave it a view and gave it a look last week. Hopefully, we can improve it and learn and move on here. And we appreciate your love and feedback too, and some tweets and some Facebook messages that we receive. We'd like to encourage that. Please keep up with us. Let us know some stuff that you like to hear about, and we'll dive into some topics here.
Yeah, and a quick just reminder, you can catch me and Daniel both on Twitter. Daniel's Twitter handle is at D_SIP, SIP, and the number 90. So that's D_SIP 90. And my Twitter handle is Benji, BENJI _91. Now, enough about us. Let's get to the main topics here, and that is sports. And let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into that UNC State game this past Saturday.
Man, oh man, Ben, what could you have asked for? It turned into a crazy game. It turned into the first 5 minutes. If you're a Carolina fan, it was going bad. I mean, 10-0, not looking good, and I mean, I just, you see that and you go, wow, what just happened? And then you see Renner make that mistake with the interception. What did you feel after the first 5 minutes of the game, Ben?
Well, see, sadly, I couldn't watch most of the game. I was covering Charlotte basketball. We had a doubleheader this past Saturday, but of course, I was following on my phone, getting video updates as quick as I could. But when I saw Carolina fell to a 10-0 lead quick, I knew that it was probably going to be trouble because playing in Carter Finley, when they go up at the beginning, it is very hard to come back. That is a very loud stadium, passionate fans who will stay to the very end no matter what. So it was just, I knew when Carolina was down 10-0 that it was going to be tough to come back. And just as you mentioned before, the preview was to get to Ebron early and continually get to Ebron. And, I think Ebron made a good statement in that game against the Wolfpack.
I think he had a real good day there. As we look at the numbers here, Ben, 9 touches for 70 yards. He could have had, I watched the second half again today on DVR, and he could have had probably 40 or 45 more yards. Renner missed him with the pass up the middle that would have got him at least 20, and I think Marquise Williams missed him on a 20-yard out that he was wide open. But it's one of those things, he was flushed. They were both flushed, and they were rushing out of the pocket and everything. So, and it was just it was a great game. I mean, honestly, to watch from the beginning. I didn't get to see the second half. I caught the second half today, but it was very impressive, and I was very impressed with Williams as a quarterback there for Carolina.
Yeah, I think we mentioned in a rivalry game, sometimes you can throw out all records, offensive strengths, defensive strengths, and what comes into play is special teams. And we mentioned. I think that was one of the big turning point was, Daniel, with the key to the game being that fake punt, the questionable fake punt that State had early on in the game. I mean, it's not even like they were on Carolina's side of the field. They were pretty much deep in their own side of the field and tried to go for it on 4th and long and ended up coming short.
Yeah, I don't understand that play call. I was sitting there watching it with my mom and dad, and I turned to my dad and I said, what just happened? Why and when and what? I believe I looked back at it today. I believe it was their own 27-yard line, and it was 4th and forever, 4th and 9, and you call a fumble, not even a fumble-rooski, direct snap to the up back, and I mean it was just clustered together there, and there was no hope for it. I mean, it wasn't even a pass, it wasn't even like a rugby run throw kind of thing. It was a dead run right out the middle, and I mean it was packed. I mean they lost 2 yards on the play. So they ended up giving it to him at the 27 or 28. I mean, that was a huge key to me. I mean, you're up 10-0, just punt the ball back and hope your defense can come back up and stop him. And Renner hadn't looked exactly solid to start the game. So it was one of those things where it was like, we're going to hand you a gift. And Carolina turned it into some points and turned the game around really right there. And then also I thought another key was I don't know if you got a chance to see it, Ben, but that targeting call on the defensive back as Williams was going toward the end zone there, right after that fake punt, it was targeting, and he was deemed disqualified. I believe his last name was Green, but I'm not 100% sure. But he did come in and he did violate that rule, and that's what that rule is for. It says You can't target someone's head or neck area with any part of the body, forearm, elbow, any kind of helmet action is going to be deemed as that. And I thought they did a great job in seeing that it was a late spear there on Williams. And that was another turning point in the game to me also.
Yeah, and I think also something that was a key to this game, and I think we mentioned it before, is that of course Brent Renner is great, and I acknowledge all the great things he has accomplished at Carolina. But with this spread offense, it needed somebody like Marquise Williams to step in and take the spotlight. And I think he did good. I mean, he only had 92 passing yards, but he had a touchdown. But the key was no interceptions. And I think he only had 51 rushing yards. Not a lot, but he scrambled and got the yards when it was needed. Something that Renner has been known as far as having turning on the wheels of the feet, when he needed to, but he's just not as fast compared to these athletic linebackers and secondary players that you're facing nowadays. Marquise Williams has that speed, and he has a good size and a good, pretty much just a good stature on himself to break tackles if he needs to, and throw the ball downfield. Looks kind of like a young Michael Vick. In the way, I'm not comparing him any way to Michael Vick because he has a lot to live up to that standard. But I believe that Marquise Williams is the answer for Carolina football if they want to be successful in this spread offense.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if you saw this late today, Ben. There was breaking news at a Chapel Hill. Renner is done for the year. He's completely done for the year, and I hate that for the guy. You don't wish an injury on anybody. You wish him his best wishes there, but it's time to turn the page and move on with Williams. And I think Williams and Mitchell kind of go hand in hand, but I think you saw Williams more developed as a passer. Mitchell was more of a runner, and they got beat Carolina got beat in the first half up and down the field with the run. And then if you look at the second half, if you break down the film, I stopped probably 7 or 8 plays there where State had, was on offense and Carolina was on defense. Carolina made the adjustment and put 7 or 8 or even 9. At one point, I saw 10 in the box. They knew that Mitchell wasn't going to scare him or throw the ball down the field. And if you could get pressure on him in his face, that he was going to make mistakes. And he made mistakes. I mean, he threw 2 interceptions there in the second half. And it was one of those things where you see the kid, you got to be able to see the route and you got to be able to throw the route quick enough. And the game was just moving too fast, I think, for Mitchell there.
Yeah, Mitchell, he was 10 for 22 for 130 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, as you put light on. As we said, if you have an inexperienced quarterback, no matter the mobility of him, whether he has speed or not, when you're rushing 8, 9, sometimes 10 people, it doesn't matter who's open. You have people with their hands up, you get flustered, you throw the ball away, and I think that's kind of what Carolina keyed on. A lot of times with more experienced quarterbacks, they can keep composure and see down the field, have a good field vision, but when it's your first time back after being injured for a while. I mean, he played last week at Florida State, but before that, he was out for a couple games. So, not much experience he experienced so far here, playing in the ACC so far. So, I mean, I believe that Mitchell will turn around, and have some good games. But it's just tough coming into the biggest rivalry that you're going to face this year, being State and Carolina, if you're in Brandon Mitchell's eyes, and expecting him to do great things, with 8 people in the box. So it's something, he can work on, and I'm sure he's a great athlete. He has a lot of great things about him that I believe that he can move on from this. But something that we can't forget on is, how about the trick play from Switzer? Slot receiver coming around and throwing the 59-yard pass. Something that, his QBR rating's pretty good, 1 for 1 for a touchdown.
You can't beat that. I mean, that's just great play call. That's knowing a film study showed up, and you got to give credit to the offensive coordinator there, and you got to give credit to Renner putting the ball behind him, and then of course you got to give credit to Quinshaw Davis. He makes the cell block like you're going to cut him, and then he stays up on his feet, and instead of cutting him, he goes right up the field, and thank goodness he was a half a step faster than the safety there, and closed in on that. Because I think if it was another 10 yards, I think the safety runs him down, but great play call, great innovative. That's Fedora for you. Spread them out, challenge them and make one-on-one moves and make an athlete be an athlete. That's the biggest thing with this spread offense is you've got an athlete, they've got an athlete. You think your athlete's better than their athlete? Let's see who wins the battle. And I think that was a great call there by the offensive coordinator. And you got to have confidence in Switzer to make that throw. And it was a pretty daggone good throw. It was right on the money there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that State after playing Carolina is transitioning back to State. State plays Duke this Saturday actually at 4 o'clock, and I mean we didn't really talk about going over this, but I mean I think Duke's for real this year, Daniel. I mean I know that you have a hidden man crush for good old Coach Cutcliffe for Duke.
Man, how do you hate the guy? I mean, the guy is like grandpa. How do you hate on Cutcliffe? I mean, he's probably the most genius person there is with a quarterback. I mean, think about it. He had Eli, he's had Peyton. You know, okay, give or take, you got Thad Lewis in the NFL now. You got him playing for the Bills. But I mean, if you're a quarterback, why are you not going to Duke? If you got the grades, why would you not go to Duke? You know, I mean, to be under his tutelage and I mean, if State only puts up 19 this week against Duke, it could be ugly. It could be 3 touchdowns, and Duke could walk away with this game. And you look forward in Duke's schedule here, Ben. They've got Wake Forest, they've got Carolina, they've got Miami, and then they've got State this week. State lost their wide receiver. Wake Forest lost Michael Campanaro. He's out. Ren Renner's out for Carolina. It's like the cards are falling where they need to fall for Duke here. And it's like you take care of what you take care of, and whatever else happens, happens. And, I think Duke's got a great chance.
Yeah, I think they do too. I think the key for State to win is, for some reason, I kind of like him in Shadrach Thornton for State. I feel like he's just a hard runner. He only had 90 yards this past week against Carolina, and actually Brandon Mitchell rushed for over 100. But something I think, just keep feeding it to Thornton. I think he's a hard runner. He has great speed on him, and for some reason, I think if State wants to beat Duke, obviously State's passing situation isn't so great right now, but that comes with inexperience with Thornton with Brandon Mitchell. But I say keep feeding it to Thornton. I think he can make some magic happen. He hasn't scored. I think he's only scored, I believe, how many touchdowns so far? He's only scored 4 touchdowns so far this season, 90 carries on 447 yards. But I believe the more carries he'll get, he'll develop into a pretty good running back there for the Pack. So I think that's what the Pack has to do when you mentioned what Duke has to do. So we'll see what happens there. Carolina plays UVA. It's always a good matchup. Carolina's been in favor of that so far. Carolina has a 13.5-point spread over the UVA Cavaliers. We'll see what happens there as UVA is 2-7 while the Tar Heels are 3-5. We'll see how that goes. It's playing under the pine trees of Kenan Stadium, so it should be a pretty day for UVA and North Carolina.
That's an interesting matchup, Ben. I think the UVA fans have had enough of Mr. London there as the head coach. I don't know how much longer he's going to be there, but that's a guy that's been there for 3 years, I believe, and he came from Richmond and everything. So it should be a good matchup. And like I said, who knows? It could be that trap game for Carolina too. You could trap game, you could lose that game, and then that's pretty much the end of your bowl eligibility there.
Yeah, Virginia's pretty much out of it so far. We'll see what North Carolina does here. They have to win out, but we're running out of time for this first segment of college football, and that'll do it for that as we went over a little bit of UNC and NC State and some of the previews for Duke and NC State, and as well as UVA and North Carolina.